That sobbing that you hear is from a young girl watching as her father is taken away by immigration authorities as he's dropping his kids off at school. Romulo Avelica Gonzalez was taken into custody on Tuesday in Los Angeles. According to the National Day Labor Organizing Network, he's an undocumented father of 4 who has lived in the United States for more than 25 years. His only criminal record is for misdemeanor driving offenses, including a DUI. And the organization is leading a petition to prevent his deportation. And joining me now is Jose Antonio Vargas, founder of Defiant American. He attended the Trump joint address to Congress as a guest of House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, and Maria Hinojosa, who's the host of NPR's Latino USA. And Jose Antonio, I have to start with you first on this, and I want to get your impressions in the room.
Yeah.
When you heard Donald Trump, whose policies caused that 12-year-old to be crying in that car, said that he wanted to create something called Voice, the victims of immigrant crime, and then there's an E. What did you feel when you heard that?
Victims of immigration crime enforcement. I was sitting there and I kept repeating that to my head. First of all, how Orwellian the whole thing sounds. That was, by the way, the only time that there was an audible groan in the entire chamber was when this was being mentioned. And to me, I mean, what it means is that anybody now can be an ICE agent. As I'm sitting here, by the way, I'm sure there's a bunch of people on Twitter calling for my deportation because they're wondering why I'm illegally flaunting my illegality. Even though being in this country illegally is actually, unlawful presence is not a crime, it's a civil offense. I have to say that, listening to that and listening to the fact that the reporters, and having been a political reporter in DC before, supremely disappointed in my colleagues in the news media in DC, who kept talking about the pivot and the softening of President Trump when the reality is the hardening of President Trump to the undocumented community is not only unprecedented, the terror and the panic. I mean, you saw that video, right? That was taken by, I think she was 12 years old. She's sitting in a car watching her dad get arrested right in front of her. We have a young woman in Mississippi named Danny Vargas, who was speaking at a press conference in Mississippi, surrounded by other immigration activists, and was taken by ICE right after. And mind you, apparently she's about to be deported without a judge hearing back to Argentina, where she hasn't been since she was a kid.
The violation of due process that all Americans are witnessing, and kind of the way I'm hearing it from my reporting, is that Romulo's daughter, who shot that video, or whoever it was who shot that video that captured her, they are being considered American heroes.
Yeah.
They are standing up for the First Amendment. They are documenting abuses against the Fourth Amendment. They are documenting violations of due process, and that we have immigration agents who are clearly identifying themselves as police. So that is something that is, this kind of dynamic has been happening. It started under George W. Bush. Well, didn't start, but it ramped up under George W. Bush, took off under Obama, tampered down a little bit. By the way, Jose and I, having not been born in this country, are not fish to be caught and released. We are human beings.
Yeah.
It is sadly, as a journalist and as a Mexican immigrant who's an American citizen, this notion of how we are spoken about, that we are caught and released in some way, is the dehumanization, right? So these, what's happening here is that actually the Voice program is probably going to be a losing policy, in that President Donald Trump, who considers these policies to be winners, what that policy is going to do is going to allow us as journalists to have access to data, which will ultimately, according to our analysis at Latino USA and our colleagues, will prove that undocumented immigrants actually commit fewer crimes, that crime has actually decreased while immigration, including undocumented immigration, has increased in the United States, and that these are communities that are on the whole safer. And so the actual criminals, who are they? U.S. born, and we have to look at that, right? Also, as I have consistently said, if we have this many violent criminals, by the way, we don't see any of these gangbangers getting rounded up at all, but if we have this many criminals out on our streets, we don't have an immigration problem, we have a policing problem.
Yep.
We have a policing problem. But this is a moment, Joy, just to finish, that, you know, what's going to happen is that young people will not be silenced. These American citizens will document this. It will come into the public. And that will be thanks to, again, a failing policy on Donald Trump's behalf that is going to put this right front and center for everyone, not just journalists to witness.
But, you know, and I think it's very important for people to hear and understand that. And there will be data. But one of the other things I think there will be are winners. There will be some winners. You had the Attorney General of the United States reopen the door to using private prisons, which presumably would have a windfall of human beings to incarcerate from these policies. You had an MSNBC exclusive report that the Trump administration plans to expand immigrant detention, that they plan to separate mothers from their children at the border, that ICE plans to deport children with even people with no criminal background. And I want to play a little bit of a soundbite just very quickly from Chris Hayes' detention report on Friday night. Just let's play that really quick.
All In has exclusively obtained meeting notes from a town hall that Citizenship and Immigration Services Asylum Chief John Lafferty held for asylum officers last month. In those notes, he indicates DHS is planning to expand the number of family immigrant detention beds from the current level of around 3,500 beds up to 20,000 beds, an increase of nearly 500%.
You know, Jose, I mean, you have put out, I think what is a very solid list of things that journalists need to understand when they are talking about immigration. No human being is illegal. Immigration is not one size fits all. A border wall would be an ineffective immigration restriction. Immigrants commit less crime than the native-born population. Annually, undocumented immigrants pay $11.64 billion in state and local taxes, and immigrants start businesses and grow the economy. These are things journalists need to understand. Do you need to add to that list undocumented immigrants are a potential revenue source, the same way that black people have been for police in these communities? We're talking about making undocumented immigrants a revenue source for private prisons.
I mean, look, if I can just get journalists to even understand these 6 facts, I have to say, by the way, I mean, give credit where credit is due. People watching television right now, this is the most contextualized, nuanced conversation on immigration that you're going to see anywhere in television between Joy, Maria, and I. Just because this is the kind of context and facts that is really lacking in the discourse of this issue. And I have to say it, I'm saying this as an undocumented person, I'm saying this as a journalist. How many more billions of dollars do the American taxpayers want to spend trying to detain people whose only crime it is to provide for their families?
And how many more billions of dollars? Great again, right, Jose? How is this going to make our economy great again?
And how many more billions of dollars do you want to spend trying to protect yourselves from a border that's never going to be fully secure? Right? I mean, at the end of the day, we have to realize that what we're talking about here, right, is not only quote-unquote illegals. We're talking about human beings. And this is way beyond Mexico. I mean, one of the things that we noted in this fact sheet is the fastest growing undocumented population are Asian immigrants, not Latinos. I think we have racial profiled Mexicans to such an extent in this country that I actually think we owe the Mexican community an apology. The fact that we have made it all about them.
You know what?
Absolutely.
I was actually
and
with...
Maria, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was with a Latino activist in Chicago who said this will be the largest mass displacement of people, of Mexican people in the United States. By the way, we have been through this before. In the 1930s, Mexicans and Mexican Americans, U.S. citizens, were rounded up and deported. And you know what? We came back because this is our country and we survived it. So this is going to be a very desperate situation. I just, you know, when I saw that policy decision about separating mothers from children, and I was trying to think about, so I'm taking, and you know, I don't want to speak officially for NPR, and I'm actually putting on like my mother's hat, like being a mom. And I was like, how could I speak to Donald Trump about this as a parent? And I was like, I really don't find any way that I can speak to him as a parent. I tried. But then I was like, well, okay, Melania, Ivanka, is this essentially what you are saying you are okay with? You are prepared to give a thumbs up that the values of our country now are to separate a mother from their child.
And that Melania is an immigrant. And yeah, and so we're going to expand this conversation because I think you made an important point. There are Caribbean American undocumented people. There are Asian American. There are Russian undocumented
Yes.
people all over New York. We're going to keep this conversation going. Jose Antonio Vargas, thank you for your bravery, for speaking out. I think it was incredibly brave of you to go to that joint address. And so I thank you. A lot of people out there are praying for you. Thank you, sir. And Maria Hinojosa, you are a warrior. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. We're going to do this more and more and more.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
you.
Coming up.